How you doing, Rhonda? Thank you so much for being here with us today.
I am doing fantastic, Momo. How are you? Long time no see.
I've known you for so many years. I calculated
know.
that today. Over 36 years. I remember you when you were actually just
believe it.
this small. You were a young mofo playing bass. And I said, wait a minute, I don't understand. How does this little cute killer chick play bass like this? And you blew everybody away back then, and you're blowing them away even more so now.
I just love what I do, and I do it because I love it, Momo. That's all. I can't be responsible for what happens.
No, you can't be responsible for following your own journey. Okay. So after accomplishing all this, do you feel like a veteran, or do you feel like you're actually just getting started?
I feel like I'm just getting started. That's the wonderfulness about music, that it's just this black hole of forever learning and forever, being challenged. Even if we're at home these times, there's so many things we can learn. We sit back and study things, and now the times are even greater. There's even more information out there with the internet and everything. You can go on YouTube and look at somebody's fingerings and do all kinds of stuff, all kinds of different styles. It's a never-ending thing, and that's the wonders about music.
Like I said, I've known you for 36 years. Like in Montreal, I met you, and I was in my 20s. I was a booking agent at the time.
I remember.
One of the first times our agency had booked you at the Dagobert.
Is that Quebec City, Dagobert?
Yeah, Dagobert was Quebec City. And you were part of an all-female group called the Sweeney's Girls. What did this do for you that you can remember from back then?
Those times, Momo, were absolutely amazing, and really some pivotal times for me, because I decided to go to university and to get a degree, in music. At that time, we could only be a jazz major or a classical major. Mm-hmm. I was enjoying that and started it, but I got a chance to be in the Sweeney's Girls and go out and play some clubs and get my feet wet and that kind of thing. And I just fell in love with it. I just knew that was really performance. That way was really more of what I wanted to get into. So kind of consequently, because of that, I kind of did finish the last part of the schooling because I ended up, going out with them instead. That was probably the first time that I learned how to play funk, and I got to listen to a lot more funk music. I would probably say that before that, I was probably a bit more fusion, rock, some jazz too. I was running around with a fake book, back then, and had done a lot of rock before. Fusion, because there's so much fusion in Quebec and Montreal anyway.
Exactly.
It was amazing, and it was at a time, especially when there really weren't any female bands out. So people were really like, what?
I remember standing in the club and looking around and remember thinking, oh my God, you poor guys, you have no idea what you've just been smacked with. I don't know what you've been thinking, but a woman gives birth and behold, the birth.
And we got a lot of work back then too, because you booked us on some things. It was a lot of fun, but I think it had that typical female demise, unfortunately, that happens sometimes with girl bands. I don't know if it was. It's hard to say when I look back at it. It's about control and all of those things in the end. Because everybody wants to be treated equal, but it doesn't always end up that way.
Tell me something. There is something about you that makes iconic musicians notice you and trust you with their music and to be by their side. Like, what do you think that is?
Well, sometimes when I was in Montreal, I remember one particular musician who was a bass player. I'm not going to say his name, but he told me one day that I was too serious. Probably if I would mention his name, people would just go, who's that? And I mean, that's not to be disrespectful, but that's kind of the comparison in the same way. Maybe sometimes I am a little too serious in some things, but I'm very serious about music. Never underestimated that. And that's one of the things that I do that I've always done. Chances are you're not going to have to look at me and go, what you're playing is not right. Or that's not the part. If you want me to embellish it or play something different now, that's different.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. And, that's a simple thing that people can do. And not everybody does it. A lot of people do, but there's a certain percentage of people, musicians sometimes, that slide on gigs, that just take it because they, want to get the money, and they don't really put the work in, and they don't really know people's material. A lot of times, unfortunately, maybe they end up not going up the ladder, because maybe there are a couple of special things that people were looking for. And Prince always taught me too later. He was all about that, and you got to respect the music first.
Serious, I think, is one of the greatest, funnest things to be part of it. For me, being really serious has brought me more laughs, more knowledge, And what great accomplishments. I don't even know what it's not like to be serious. And I'm sure that you were probably born a serious baby.
It's taking me all over the world and taking me to places and being able to see and do things that I never thought I would be able to do, or never got into music because I thought that's what I would get out of it. Mm-hmm. I just played because I liked it. And then I just liked it more and more and more and more. And it's just what I wanted to do.
You have a very high degree of loyalty with people that you play with, that you commit to like 100%. Just between Prince and Jeff, we're talking over 20 years of full-time Rhonda in the mix here, right? What's the trip with that?
Started with Prince, but Prince was a different kind of artist because the first 3 years that I worked with him, I was on retainer. So it was definitely an exclusive type of situation. He has always been, I'm going to tell this little secret, right? It's from my understanding, a cat who didn't like to share. If it was my own music that I was doing, that's fine, but he would rather not. And I'll just speak for me that I went out and played with a whole bunch of people. A lot of times I was on retainer, I was paid by him, and it was an exclusive type of situation. So that made it a little easier to understand that, and to kind of just go along with that. Because that was, the biggest gigs that I got coming out of Canada, coming out of Montreal. That was the first gig that I got at that time. I had no problem with it. It changed a little bit afterwards, but then some people are different. But more or less, then again, I try to make myself invaluable over the years so that we continue to work together. Ironically, most of the great artists that I've worked with and still do, they have in numerous occasions changed the band around me, but I was still in the band. But it's been like 4 or 5 different versions of that band, like the new Power Generation. Kind of like what Jeff do. He's changed the band quite a few times in this. This is my 10th year with him. And I enjoy it. I enjoy him. I learn so much from his playing also. We're great friends. It's just a great, beautiful, beautiful, humbling situation, beautiful musical situation, beautiful personal relationship. Just the same philosophy again, making yourself invaluable. Not in a sly kind of way, but just in a pure way. Just because I love music, it seems to work. I need your touch.
I want to ask you some stuff that I know everybody wants to know. Okay, so we're going to talk about Prince for a minute here. So Prince was notorious, okay, for keeping musicians on their toes at all times. Obviously, did that help shape you as a musician like today? I'm sure it added to what you were already born and bred for. Okay, so tell me some stories and some real aha moments where the envelope was pushed and you realized, damn, this is some next level shit here. What's going on? I'm in,
Well, from the time I got in there, I knew it was next level. He was such a prolific writer. He had such a large catalog, and I always wanted to play the majority of it all the time. So the amount of tunes that I had to learn per day was outrageous. Then I had to play them next day, and not only play them next day, but then the next day get more songs. Get another 10 after 8 hours of rehearsals that you need to go learn in your hotel room. It was just a constant thing. You weren't allowed to record in rehearsals with him. We weren't allowed to bring any personal recording equipment or anything because he was so against getting bootlegged from his stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. So that you had to have a really great memory. You couldn't be somebody who couldn't remember anything or needed some ginkgo biloba or, had smoked too many joints and you can't remember what the part because he only tells you once.
Oh, only tells you once?
He only tells you once, so you better write it down. You better find some kind of way to retain it because if you go into rehearsal the next day and you screw that part up or don't remember, he's letting you have it in front of everybody. So he was very tough that way. I call him a perfectionist in a world where perfection doesn't exist. So it was kind of tough, because nobody's perfect, and he was very demanding and was aware of, and not that he shouldn't have been. And he was aware of every single note, and he controlled pretty much every single note. But that was a great lesson in really, particularly what funk is, because, one of his sayings was always, if the band had 5 musicians in it, he would say, well, we have 6. The 6th musician is silence or space. Oh! That's what really makes classic funk what it is. He was major on that. You could not butcher his song or play it the way you wanted to or play even an extra whatever. It had to be what it was because that's how he was. So it was lesson after lesson, Momo, the way you should dress or the way you should move on the stage, or he was a consummate performer. And on the other hand, the other lesson was you can't just go in there and go, oh, I got the bass parts, I got all the parts, great, I got this down. And the next thing you know, he's saying, okay, you're doing choreography now. So now you have to dance and play at the same time. So I mean, it was always something to challenge you, which is a great thing. What's life without a challenge, man?
So this could be happening on tour or when you guys are at home.
Totally.
Or when there's no time for rest. We're always improving. We're always creating. We're building some kind of super tight, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah,
undoubtedly, because I have never seen a bad Prince
Totally.
performance.
And of course, you could use a note or some notes to write down maybe for a few rehearsals. But as you see, when he's on that stage and doing those shows, there's no music stanzas or nothing up there. You better remember everything.
I don't know anybody who's pushed it that far, regardless of their stature.
It was next level. He was an anomaly. He was like comparing, and I don't want to be respectful to anybody, but comparing the army to like the special forces. It's just a different regime, a different thing. So it's kind of like when you come out of there, if you can last, there's really probably nothing that you won't be able to do because you've been in just so many situations with him mentally and musically and physically, you know.
Have you watched anybody that has like come in and crumbled under his regime and didn't even last like a couple of weeks and it was like, sorry, time to go?
Oh yeah, I've seen grown men cry. I've seen. Yes.
Why? Because because of the memory thing about being serious about.
He could beat you down if you let him. He could beat you down. He knows how to beat you down mentally, especially if you're not, performing. So yes, I've seen grown men cry.
Tell me what happened the very first time you walked into a freaking room with him to jam.
Oh, well, that was when I first met him, and that was actually in 1996. And I came from Montreal to meet him, so it was a little bit overwhelming at first because he was Prince, amazing superstar, and he's always the same way that you see him all the time, dressed to the nines, clean, smells good, everything. He's just on point 100% of the time. I mean, that was crazy, so I had to not be intimidated, of course. You can't play fanboy, fangirl, in that type of situation. Of course, I knew who he was, but at that time, I didn't know every Prince song. Getting a call that quick, it was impossible for me to even get ready. So with that in mind, it was a little bit better. So we just basically jammed on anything. It was great, but I think he was just testing me to see if I had enough styles, or if I was stylistically okay, because he wanted to flip back and forth a little bit. And I guess, and of course I didn't have his style because his particular bass style on his records is very individual and unique to him because, 95% of the time it's him playing the bass. So he has a very particular sound. So I guess that he just wanted to see if I would be able to be taught, to be able to retain certain things. And if you could show me stuff, if I could play it back.
Was this you and him or with a band or like?
And a drummer. No, just me and him and a drummer. That's it.
A three-piece, guitar, bass, drums, let's go.
That's it. Whatever. We're playing whatever. And it was cool at the same time because at the first time that I met him too, I spent 3 days or 2 days, I think, at Paisley Park the first time. I brought a fretless because, we do fretless. And at that time, I was listening to some of his records and seeing that, a lot of those cats back in those times were using keyboard samples for fretless. And me personally, it's a fretless, but I don't like it because it doesn't give you can't control the vibrato. You can't, and you can't control the expression the way that you can with a fretless. So I thought, well, let me bring a fretless with me too. Let me bring some things that maybe, he hasn't had live for a while. Because again, that sentiment of trying to make yourself invaluable, trying to make yourself a little bit different when you walk into situations. So, worst case scenario, people remember you. Because really, he can have anybody who wants to play with him. So, I got to try to do something different. He had me play on 2 songs on his Emancipation album when I was there. I Can't Make You Love Me, which he did the Bonnie Raitt version of that song, which is beautiful.
Beautiful.
And then he let me play on this beautiful song called Dreaming About You. And he let me do a bass solo.
With the fretless.
With the fretless. These were both on fretless. So I figured at the end of it, because after the couple of days, he's very, he doesn't really commit to anything at first. So, I went home and I thought, well, worst case scenario, if I don't hear back, at least I got to play on his record, man, I thought, well, that's amazing. But, then I got the call back maybe a month and a half later.
Oh, a month and a half later. So you had to fry there for a month.
I fried there. I was still working, and I was working in a wedding band at that time. Was one of the gigs that I had in Montreal, and they were like the biggest wedding band in Montreal. Still are. An Italian wedding band, man. I did everything. I have done everything.
I never thought you ever played in a wedding band.
But I do believe, for any musician, try to do as much of everything as you can, to try to just get the experience, be well-rounded. My mother used to tell me too when I was younger, do as many auditions as you can. Just get better at that process, because auditioning's a process too. If you have that mind control over it too, if you show that you're comfortable, that's an important part in music too, I think, and especially with pop music, or if you're trying to work with certain individuals. I think it pays off a bit to exude a little bit of confidence, because nobody wants to hire somebody or have somebody in their band who looks like they're intimidated all the time or scared to be there,
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just something that you have to get over time just from doing things. So, yeah, I have my Italian wedding band stories too. I changed a lot of habits back then. I don't drink as much coffee anymore. I don't drink coffee at all, but I used to, live off the espresso machines and everything at the Italian weddings. And,
oh my God!
Eat too much pasta and eat too many shrimp cocktails. And
look like a teen, man. Like, no shit. Your energy, your Mr.
Well, you too. To keep up with you, you got the energy of 1,000 men. Oh my God, you always have too.
Well, when you meet another person that's driven,
you recognize it.
What is the difference in the process between working with a guy like Prince and Jeff Beck now? Two icons, but two totally different guys. What's the process there? One
from complete control, I would say, to let's just have fun. It was so wonderful that was one of the things I love about Jeff, and to just go from one environment to another and still be appreciated, but it's just about having fun and making music. If you make a mistake with Prince, the bodyguard comes to you after the show and asks you to write a check.
Oh, you got a fine?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, are you kidding me? So some James Brown shit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How much would he fine you per mistake? Or
no, I didn't get fined, but John Blackwell, the drummer, got fined a lot. There was one night when Prince was doing spins. He would do spins, and he would turn around to John and he would go, so every digit is 100.
That's $500.
Well, he did 3 spins, because that was $1,500 for him that night. I think he had a trigger problem or something, and I don't know what it was, but he was like that. Definitely James Brownish. And I have paid him before, not that much, but I think all of us have had instances like that. So now Jeff Beck, hypothetically, I'm not saying this would happen, but the whole show got crashed. He'd just be his same old happy self afterwards and passing around everybody a glass of champagne and mimosa. He's just a wonderful guy. But Prince was too. They're different.